Bambi, for those few of you who aren't familiar with the story somehow, is a 1942 Disney animated film that is the follow-up to Dumbo, which is the follow-up to Pinocchio, which was the last original Disney animated film that I reviewed. And I decided to skip Dumbo because I was never a fan of it growing up. So I honestly didn't feel like it. Maybe I'll get to it another time. I just, like I said, I didn't want to do it this time. And as with all of my earlier Disney animated film reviews, this will contain spoilers. The main characters are Bambi, a white-tailed deer, his parents, the father being called the Great Prince of the Forest, and his mother being called... Actually, I don't think they've given her a name. His friend's Thumper, who is a rabbit, and then his other friend Flower, who is a skunk. The film is a coming-of-age story, the first for Disney, who at that point had mainly focused on fairy tales and princesses by this point. And it's done very well. I especially love experiencing nature with and through Bambi as he grows up. Now, though I do enjoy Bambi as a baby, you know, just as cute as animals can be whenever they're young, I actually do find a good bit of the section kind of boring. I actually don't begin to love the movie until he becomes an adult. While it's debatable if he's actually an interesting character, I personally don't think he's meant to be very interesting. He's just a kid. He's supposed to absorb everything around him, as well as the lessons he learns from his parents and his friends. And speaking of parents, I always find it interesting that in the film, the father isn't really around, and when he does show up, Bambi seems to be kind of terrified of him. A bit of a dysfunctional family, but I kind of like it. And again, speaking of parents, okay, before I continue, let's just get this part out of the way. I'm not gonna hide it, we all know about Bambi's mom, and I always think it's not the death itself that hurts us. It was the connection between her and her son, and you just feel the connection being severed by that gunshot. Even though, okay, Mallory, what did you say about the gunshot earlier? Like how it sounded?
It sounded like metal, banging against, concrete. Like you took like a big metal cube and just banged it on the concrete.
So, not a gunshot?
No. It sounded like something went wrong with the audio, or they just literally deliberately planned, we're just gonna hit like this big metal cube against the fucking concrete. Just like it reverbs and shit. It just doesn't sound like a gunshot.
Fair enough. Despite the film's infamous mommy killing, that's really not the only scene in the film that gets really dark. There's a lot of really intense scenes, whether it's Bambi going up against hunting dogs, or a bunch of pheasants just trying to hide away from a bunch of hunters. Despite Disney having, despite Disney previously having very iconic villains, it actually makes sense, and I'm actually glad that they decided to keep any kind of, sort of antagonist to a minimum. But don't get me wrong, there is a villain in the story, it's just that you don't see him. The villain is man, and just his presence, just the presence of man, is terrifying enough for all of these woodland creatures. Animation in this film is just breathtaking. I mean, you truly feel like you're in nature when you're watching this film. And while you don't get very complex characters, you do get complexity and a lot of the emotion out of the artwork, especially the backgrounds. The backgrounds are where you'll get most of the emotional feel. And the film has such a heavy atmosphere because of how good the animation is. In the end, Bambi is still a good film, though it's not among my favorites. I actually remember growing up that Bambi and Dumbo were actually the Disney films that I watched the least, and I don't think that I'll be watching it countless times now that I've grown up, but I definitely have a newfound appreciation for Bambi. Out of 5 reels, I will give Bambi a 3.5. Please subscribe to the channel if you haven't already for more reviews and content. There's always more to come. And rambles. Lots and lots of rambles.
Meaningful rambles.
Meaningful rambles. Always rambling. Hashtag always rambling.
Hashtag rambles.
Well, as always, thank you guys so much for watching, and farewell until the next video. Bye, guys.